Hey guys, James here. We're at the Auto Nouveau shop, and today I want to talk about the test spot and the variables that go into it. And we're working on a 2002 BMW M5, massive project, and I thought with this project, we're going to have the opportunity to kind of take you on different intervals as we kind of go through this project, and I thought that would be kind of cool. So we're at the test spot interval. We just got the front end, the hood and fenders back from the body shop, so those have been repainted. We're going to be sending the wheels out, coatings, multi-stage correction, all that kind of stuff. So excited about this, but we're at the test spot phase, and we just washed and decontaminated it, so it's clean, and now we're kind of assessing the paintwork and figuring out, okay, what is going to be our approach? What machine pad polish combination are we going to use to get the result that we're looking for? And in my opinion, that analysis starts back to the client consultation when you're first going over the car with the client, figuring out the history. And that's where you're asking the client, okay, are any panels repainted? You know, who was the previous owner? Are you the owner? All that kind of stuff comes into play when you're trying to figure it out. In our case, we repainted the hood and fenders, so we now know, okay, we have to approach those panels a little bit differently than, say, this original panel. Same thing goes for plastic versus steel or aluminum or composite or carbon fiber. All those different materials are going to react differently to polishing, and knowing that ahead of time is going to help you plan better. So then, kind of my first step in approaching a test spot is to kind of go through our safety checks. And the first one is kind of a visual inspection after an isopropyl alcohol, in this case 50-50 mixture. I'm going to just basically give the paint a wipe down just to remove any residues that might be on the surface, so I can see the true condition of the paint. And that's where we have our scan grip lights, we're inspecting the paint, and we're seeing what type of defect we're trying to chase after, because that will also help determine the pad polish machine combination. Is it swirl marks? Is it light scratches? Is it hazing? Is it oxidation? Is it sanding marks? All those different things, you might have to adjust your approach based on what you're trying to remove. After that point, we go into our paint measurement. In this case, using an ultrasonic paint depth gauge, we're just seeing kind of what's going on. I did this a little bit earlier, and we were averaging out about 180 microns. So very, very safe. But the reason we're doing this is because through a compounding or even a polishing process, we're removing microscopic levels of material, or clear coat. And when we're in the process of removing these defects, we're basically shaving away a microscopic layer of clear coat, which is the top layer. That's the only layer that we're polishing on. And in this project, right, we're trying to maximize the look. We're trying to get it that 10% further to make the vehicle look fantastic. But at the same time, we want to think about it from a preservation standpoint. We don't want to risk it and end up having to repaint the whole car. We don't want to do that. So we want to safely fix the paint, polish the paint, but make sure that we're doing it in the safest way possible, in the least aggressive method possible. While we also did our visual inspection, we're also kind of in our heads, the more you polish paint and mess around with different cars, the more preconceived notions you're going to have about, okay, German, BMW, metallic, clear coat paint. It's going to be on the harder side, right? So you might have some preloaded combinations ready to go, which is going to help you kind of speed up the test spot process, right? If we started with just a polishing foam pad and just a relatively light polish, we're probably not going to get the result that we want, right? But it might be worth a try if it has potential, right? In this case, I know, from just working on these particular paints before, that most likely we're going to have to use a heavy cut compound, a cutting pad, in order to remove the heavy swirls and scratches that are in the paint. Because this paint, it's 2002 car. It's been washed a lot. It's in fantastic shape. It's just we have to kind of remove the wash marks and the wipe down marks that have inevitably been, that have happened probably 1,000 times over its life so far. So we're then, once we kind of figure out, okay, let's go heavy compound, let's go microfiber cutting pad, and let's see our result. And let's kind of talk about the variables that go into that, the actual putting the machine onto the paint. So the first thing I do, since we've selected a cutting disc, we've selected Meguiar's M101, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prime the pad. So I'm going to put a pretty serious amount of compound on there right now. And basically what I'm doing is as I rub this into the pad, is I want to coat each one of these fibers with abrasives, right, to kind of unleash the cutting potential of this pad. And so typically you have to add a little bit more here and there to kind of get it fully coated. But that's really going to maximize the potential of what this pad is designed to do, which is cut the paint. So after we do that, typically, and the amount of polish or compound in this case that you decide to use is also going to be you're going to mess around with your choice of how much liquid is going to be on the pad. That's going to be based on what type of paint you're working on. So you might have to use a little bit more, a little bit less. That's what the test spot is all about, is to figure out, how much and all that kind of stuff. So let's go right into it. In this case, right, so we have M101, we have a microfiber cutting disc, we have the Rupes 21. That's kind of our three, at least initial variables that we're selecting based on, okay, we've worked on a similar car before, this should work out. Now, I'll also say that in a lot of cases, just because it's the same car, same year, same paint, there could be, we could have the one that's completely different, painted somewhere else, and we're going to get a totally new set of variables thrown at us. So just something to think about. Don't get discouraged if the result doesn't go your way. That's what this test spot is all about. When I typically do a test spot, I typically work in a smaller, a 2x2 section, a smaller section to kind of test it out. But make sure that as you're doing this, sometimes I've seen guys will do a small test spot, but then as they kind of are going through the project, we'll open it up to a bigger section. Well, then if you do that, the result might not be the same. So something to think about. Same thing with residue management. If you want this result, your test spot result, to be exactly the same as everywhere else on the car, you have to make sure that the variables are always the same, which means we're starting out with a fresh, clean pad. It has no residue, no paint residue, no spent abrasives. As you move, this pad will get dirty. Clear coat is going to be on here now. Spent abrasives that are toast are going to be on here now. You want to be cleaning that constantly or switching to a new pad as you move along so that you can mimic this result everywhere else. I think that's one of the most important things to realize when you're doing a test spot is if you want this result, you have to make sure that all the variables that you selected for this result are then mimicked everywhere else on the car. Big one for me. But let's go right into it. Let's do our test spot and let's talk a little bit about the variables. Okay, so now we got inspection time. Let's see what's going on. So, and obviously always adjust your light height in some cases too. Sometimes if you're super close with a light like this, on a lightly colored paint, it kind of almost floods it out and you're not really seeing what's going on. But as you raise it up, all of a sudden it's like, oh, a little micro marring. Oh, I got a rid over here. So that's another thing to think about. In this case, what M101 is doing is leveling the swirls and scratches. A couple rids that might be unsafe to chase, they might be as well. We're gonna have to test that out a little bit, but it's leaving a really nice finish, which means this is a super, super hard paint. If we were doing BMW Jet Black, 101 would be way too aggressive. But in this case, it's perfect. Then we can go right into our polishing process, and that polishing process is gonna be relatively quick because we're removing all the defects here, and we're just coming in with a polishing pad and something like maybe Meguiar's 210 just to refine the finish, extract as much gloss as possible, and then you're good to go. The variables that I think are also important to mention when I'm approaching this process here is machine speed, arm speed, pressure, tilt, backing plate tilt, all that kind of stuff comes into play. In this case, I was running at about speed 4. I would call it medium to firm pressure, decent amount of pressure. Slow arm movements to allow the abrasives in the pad to work. And I had not a ton of pad tilt in this case. I think pad tilt's going to come more into play as I approach a lot of these edges, and I'm wanting to get the same level of contact on an edge and the same level of result as I got in this flatter section. But all those variables, those polishing variables, is just something you want to be thinking about. And as you approach your test spot, test them out. This is the time to spend more time to figure it out now, so then you can dial in a process and then crush it on the rest of the car and maximize your time and efficiency. I really hope this helped. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a while. Comment below with any questions at all. If you guys have anything to add to the equation and test spot, craziness, would love to hear from you guys. See you guys next time.